Don't drink the water in the room. Dr. Hale said the last dose is in the pitcher. He said, it will make you forget. The frantic whisper cut through the sterile silence of the 40th floor. Olivia Coventry froze, her hand halfway to the gleaming chrome handle of the boardroom door. Her mind, a fortress of numbers, legal clauses, and strategic forecasts, faltered. A child, a girl no older than 9, had darted from behind a monstrously large fern, her face pale, her eyes wide with a terror far too old for her. Before Olivia could process the intrusion, the girl had pressed a crumpled napkin into her palm, delivered her cryptic warning, and vanished toward a service corridor, the rattle of a distant janitor's cart covering her escape. Olivia stood alone, the air smelling of glass cleaner and ambition. In 10 minutes, she was scheduled to sign a merger that would be the crown jewel of her career. But the girl's words echoed. The last dose. A cold, familiar dread coiled in her stomach. For weeks, a disorienting fog had been creeping into the corners of her mind. A momentary lapse, a forgotten name, a dizzying spell of vertigo. Executive burnout, Dr. Hale had called it. A natural consequence of running a billion-dollar healthcare empire. She looked down at her hand. The napkin was still there. Unfolding it, she saw a child's drawing, a pitcher of water next to a crude but unmistakable skull and crossbones. A prank. It had to be. A janitor's kid playing a stupid, dangerous game. Olivia's jaw tightened. Security on this floor was supposed to be absolute. She crumpled the napkin, the thin paper crackling in her fist, and turned back to the door. She was Olivia Coventry. She did not have time for this. The boardroom door swung open silently. Geneva Paris, the hospital's chief administrator, stood just inside, her smile as thin and sharp as the stylus she held. Olivia, we were just about to send a search party. Her tone was light, but her eyes were like chips of ice. Just reviewing my notes, Olivia replied, her voice smooth, betraying none of the tremor she felt inside. Her gaze swept the room. The long mahogany table gleamed. The board members were already seated, their faces a mixture of anticipation and deference. At the head of the table, Doctor. Lorian Hale rose to greet her. He was charisma in a tailored suit, his smile warm, his eyes full of practiced concern. Olivia, you look pale, he said, his voice a low, reassuring murmur as he guided her to her seat. Are you remembering to take it easy? The pressure of this deal. I'm fine, Lorian, she said, pulling her arm from his touch. Let's get this done. As she sat, her eyes landed on the crystal pitcher of water in the center of the table, sweating condensation. Next to it was a single glass, placed precisely at her spot. The girl's warning screamed in her mind. The last dose is in the pitcher. Before we begin, Geneva announced, her voice crisp. I've taken the liberty of pouring you a glass of water, Olivia. You've been running on coffee all morning. She pushed the glass an inch closer, a gesture of solicitude, a threat. Olivia stared at the glass. To refuse it would be paranoid, bizarre. It would be a crack in the flawless facade of control she had cultivated for 20 years. And yet, the fog, the moments of lost time, the unsettling feeling that her own mind was betraying her. She remembered Dr. Hale's treatment for her burnout, the private consultations in her office, his insistence on absolute discretion, the small blue vials of what he called a customized vitamin infusion. He had administered them himself, always with a new syringe, always with a comforting word. This will clear the fog right up, Olivia. Her hand stopped, hovering over the glass. The blue vials, the skull and crossbones. He said it will make you forget. She drew her hand back slowly and folded it in her lap. I'm fine, Geneva. Let's proceed with the presentation. A beat of silence stretched, thin and tight. She saw Geneva exchange a look with Lorian, a look of pure, cold fury that was gone in an instant. Of course, Dr. Hale said, his smooth charm snapping back into place. The numbers. He tapped a button, and the screen behind him lit up. The meeting began, but Olivia heard nothing. Her thoughts were a maelstrom. She wasn't just tired. She wasn't burning out. She was being poisoned, and the little girl with the terrified eyes had just saved her life. Down in the cavernous basement of the hospital, Thomas Calder's hands were shaking. He gripped the handle of his mop until his knuckles turned white, the familiar scent of antiseptic doing nothing to calm the frantic hammering in his chest. Lyra sat on an overturned bucket beside him, her small shoulders hunched. She hadn't said a word since he'd found her hiding in a linen closet on the pediatric wing, her face streaked with tears. "Lyra, talk to me," he pleaded, his voice low. "What happened up there? You know you're not supposed to go to the executive floors." "I had to, Daddy," she whispered, her voice choked. "I heard them." They were going to hurt her. Thomas knelt in front of her, his worn work pants soaking up dampness from the concrete floor. "Hurt who? Hurt who?" "Dr. Hale and the lady with the red lipstick," Lyra said, her eyes welling up. "Miss Paris. I was in the little room next to the big meeting room, the one with the broken lock where you keep the extra cleaning stuff." Thomas knew the one, a forgotten storage closet on the 40th floor, its door hidden behind a decorative panel. He'd told Lyra she could sit in there and read sometimes, thinking it was the safest, most invisible place in the entire building. "I was just drawing," Lyra continued, her words tumbling out, "and I heard them talking in the room next door." The vent was open a little. Dr. Hale said, "The last dose is in the pitcher. It's untraceable after an hour. When she signs that merger agreement, she'll be so confused she won't even remember her own name. The board will have no choice but to invoke the medical clause and remove her." Thomas's blood ran cold. He felt the floor tilt beneath him. "Remove who, Lyra?" "The CEO lady," she said, her lip trembling. "Miss Coventry." Miss Paris laughed and said, "It's a shame. All that power, undone by a glass of water. They said she'd be finished, and they could finally bury the trial data before the new partners found it." He stared at his daughter, at the terrifying clarity in her eyes. This wasn't a child's fantasy. This was real. His quiet, observant Lyra had stumbled into the middle of a waking nightmare. He had spent his life trying to be invisible, to keep his daughter safe from a world that had already taken too much from them. And now, she had walked into the path of a monster. "You gave her a note?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. Lyra nodded, pulling a crayon stub from her pocket. "I didn't know what else to do. I drew what I heard them say." He pulled her into his arms, holding her tight against his chest, his mind racing. Dr. Hale, Geneva Paris. They were two of the most powerful people in the hospital, untouchable. Who would ever believe the word of a janitor's daughter against theirs? He felt a surge of pure, primal fear, not for himself, but for Lyra. If they knew what she'd heard, what she'd done. He gently pushed her back, holding her by the shoulders. His gaze was intense. "Lyra, listen to me very carefully. You did a very brave thing, a very good thing, but now you can't say another word about this to anyone. Not to the nurses, not to your friends, not to anyone. Do you understand?" "But they're bad people, Daddy," she cried softly. "I know," he said, his throat tight. "And we're going to be very, very careful, because bad people don't like it when their secrets get out." He stood up, his mind shifting from fear to a cold, hard resolve. He had no power, no influence, no voice, but he had a key card that opened every door in the hospital. He had gloves in his pocket and a cart that allowed him to move through the halls unnoticed. He was invisible. And for the first time in his life, he realized that might be the most powerful thing a man could be. The boardroom feels like an ice palace. The chilled air does nothing to cool the feverish heat behind Olivia's eyes. She stands at the head of the table, a remote in her hand, clicking through slides that belong to another woman's life. Her voice is steady, a marvel of muscle memory. She speaks of market shares and synergistic growth, but in her mind, a single phrase repeats on a loop. The last dose is in the pitcher. She doesn't look at Hale or Paris. She looks at the faces of the board members, men and women she has known for years, and wonders how many of them are waiting for her to falter, to prove she is no longer fit to lead. Every smile feels like a threat. The fog in her mind is thick with fear and adrenaline. She knows they are watching her, Hale and Paris, their gazes like a physical weight, waiting for the crack to appear. She clicks to the final slide. "As you can see," she says, her throat dry, "the transition will be seamless." The room breaks into polite, satisfied applause. The merger is approved. It is the biggest victory of her career, and it feels like a death sentence. As the meeting dissolves, Hale is at her side instantly, his hand on her elbow. His touch feels like a brand. "Olivia, are you all right?" You barely said 2 words that weren't on the slides. His voice is slick with concern. "You didn't touch your water. You're dehydrated. That's what's causing these spells." "I have a migraine, Lorian," she says, pulling away. She gathers her papers, her hands moving with stiff, robotic precision. "The fluorescent lights." Geneva joins them, her expression a perfect mask of sympathy. "We've been telling you for weeks to slow down. Perhaps it's time you took a real vacation. Let us handle the post-merger integration. You've earned it. Let us handle it." The words hang in the air, a thinly veiled coup. They are trying to get her to hand them the keys. "I'll be fine," Olivia says, her voice like ice. "I just need to go home." She turns and walks out of the boardroom without a backward glance, feeling their eyes on her back. She doesn't run. She walks with the measured, confident stride of a CEO. But inside, she is scrambling for her life. In their quiet apartment, Thomas watches Lyra at the kitchen table. She is trying so hard to be normal, coloring a picture of a star-filled sky, but he sees the tension in her small shoulders, the way her crayon presses down too hard. He has made her promise, twice, not to speak of what happened. He sees the weight of that secret. "I'm going to be late tonight, Sweet Pea," he says, forcing a casual tone. "They've scheduled a deep clean of the surgical suites. I need you to stay with Mrs. Gable next door." Lyra looks up, her eyes searching his. "Are you going to look for evidence, Daddy?" Like a detective. The question hits him like a punch. "I'm just going to do my job," he says, smoothing her hair. "My job is to clean things up and to keep you safe. Everything else will take care of itself. It's a lie, and they both know it." Hours later, at night, the hospital is a different creature, hushed and humming. Thomas moves through the corridors with his cart, his pace steady, his expression placid. He is a ghost in a gray uniform, a part of the building's machinery, utterly invisible. He takes the service elevator to the 40th floor. The executive wing is deserted. He mops the floors with practiced strokes, his ears straining for any sound. When he's sure he's alone, he slips into the kitchenette where the executive assistants work and finds the recycling bin for Olivia Coventry's office. His heart hammers against his ribs. Pulling on a pair of thick latex gloves, he carefully lifts the bag out. It's mostly paper and empty coffee cups. He methodically sorts through it on the counter, his breath held tight in his chest. Then he sees it. At the very bottom, tucked inside a tissue, is a small, empty glass vial with a blue plastic cap. Next to it is the crinkled plastic wrapper of a disposable syringe. It's exactly as he imagined it. The proof. His breath escapes in a shaky hiss. This is real. He is holding the weapon. He knows evidence is everything. From his cart, he takes a fresh, clear trash bag. He carefully places the tissue containing the vial and the wrapper inside, twists the top, seals it with a knot, and then places that bag inside another one. He hides the package in a compartment in his cleaning cart, beneath bottles of ammonia and bleach. He finishes his work, his movements automatic, his mind 1,000 miles away. He has crossed a line. He is no longer just a janitor. He is a witness. Holding evidence makes him a threat. Back in the basement locker room, He stares at the double-bagged vial. It's so small, yet it holds the power to ruin lives, including his and Lyra's. For a moment, he thinks about throwing it in the incinerator, forgetting everything. But then he thinks of what they plan to do to Miss Coventry, to steal her mind, her career, her life. If they could do this to a CEO, what could they do to him and his daughter? Running wasn't safety. It was just a different cage. Olivia sits in the dark of her penthouse, the glittering city a distant, cold spectacle. She hasn't turned on a light. The shadows feel safer. She has spent hours replaying every conversation she's had with Lorian Hale for the past 6 months. Every, "You look tired, Olivia." Every, "Let me help you." It was all a slow, methodical campaign to make her believe she was losing her mind, to isolate her, to make her trust no one but him. And it had almost worked. If it weren't for that little girl, who was she? The daughter of a janitor, she'd assumed from the rattling cart. Olivia's mind, trained to strategize, begins to work. The girl knew about the picture. She knew Dr. Hale's name. This wasn't a guess. It was specific intelligence. The father, the janitor, might know something, or if he doesn't, he is the only connection she has to the one person who told her the truth. It's a desperate, insane idea to place her trust in a complete stranger, a man who pushes a mop for a living. It violates every rule of her carefully constructed world. But that world is a lie. Her friends are enemies. The old rules no longer apply. She stands, a ghostly silhouette against the city lights. She doesn't know the janitor's name or where he lives, but she knows where he works. And she knows that in a hospital full of liars, the man who cleans up their messes might be the only one she can trust. She has to find him. It's the only move she has left. The next morning, the city awakens to a pale sunrise. Olivia Coventry does not. She hasn't slept. She sits at her granite island, a laptop open, the glow illuminating the exhaustion on her face. For hours, she has been a ghost inside her own company's network. She can't just ask for a janitor with a 9-year-old daughter. The question itself would be a red flag that would get back to Geneva, Paris within the hour. The approach has to be silent, invisible. She bypasses the usual channels, going straight into the raw data of the human resources server. She pulls up the roster for environmental services, then cross-references it with employee dependents. Her fingers fly across the keyboard, her search parameters narrowing. Male employee, single, 1 dependent, female, age 9. The search completes. A single file loads. Calder, Thomas. Employee ID, 7742. Start date, 9th of December 2021. Department, EVS, night shift. Dependent, Calder, Lyra. DOB, May 16, 2016. A photo ID stares back at her. A man in his late 30s, his face weary but kind. His brown eyes looking straight into the camera with quiet resilience. Thomas Calder. She scans the file. Address, phone number, a clean record. This is him. A wave of something akin to hope, fragile and unfamiliar, washes over her. She writes down the address, then scrubs her search history from the server logs, leaving no footprints. Her fortress has a back door, and she has just learned how to use it. The neighborhood is a world away from her own. Modest brick apartment buildings stand shoulder to shoulder. Olivia sits in her parked Audi, the engine off, the supple leather of the seats feeling alien. She watches children play on a patch of worn grass. She checks the address again. This is it. Taking a deep breath, she gets out of the car. Her tailored suit and expensive heels feel like a costume. Every step up the concrete walkway to apartment 2B feels like a step off a cliff. She raises her hand to knock, her knuckles hesitating. What is she even going to say? The door opens before she can knock. Thomas Calder stands there, dressed in a simple t-shirt and jeans. His eyes widen in shock for a fraction of a second before a guarded, shuttered expression takes over. He recognizes her instantly. "Miss Coventry," he says. His voice is flat, but his body is tense. He makes no move to let her in. "Mr. Calder," she replies, her own voice sounding unnaturally formal. "May I have a word with you?" "It's important." He glances behind him, back into the apartment, a flicker of fear in his eyes. He is thinking of Lyra. "I think you have the wrong apartment," he says, his hand moving to close the door. "We have nothing to talk about." "Please," Olivia says, the word coming out softer than she intended. "Yesterday, in the corridor, your daughter, she gave me a warning." Thomas's jaw clenches. "My daughter has a wild imagination. She likes to play games. I've told her not to bother the staff." He is feeding her a lie, a shield to protect his child. This is the moment. She can press him with authority or meet him with the truth. She chooses the truth. "She told me not to drink the water," Olivia says, her voice dropping to a near whisper. She holds his gaze, letting him see the fear she has kept hidden from everyone else. "And she was right. They were waiting for me to drink it." The denial in Thomas's eyes wavers. He sees not a powerful CEO demanding answers, but a woman who is just as terrified as he is. He studies her face for a long, agonizing moment, searching for a trap. He finds none. With a slow, weary sigh, he steps back, opening the door just wide enough for her to enter. The apartment is small but immaculately clean. A child's drawings are taped to the refrigerator. Her presence feels like a violation of its safety. "Lyra is at school," he says quietly, closing the door behind them. "What do you want from us?" "I want to understand what's happening," Olivia says, turning to face him. "Your daughter overheard something. I need to know every word." Thomas hesitates, the instinct to protect Lyra warring with the need to fight back. Looking at Olivia, he realizes this woman is their only hope. Hiding won't keep them safe anymore. "They want you gone," he says, his voice low and steady. Dr. Hale and Ms. Paris. They were in a room near where Lyra was. They talked about a last dose in the water. They said it would make you so confused you couldn't sign your own name, that the board would have to remove you. Olivia sinks onto a dining chair, the strength draining from her legs. Hearing it confirmed makes it brutally real. "Why?" she whispers. "What did they say?" "Something about trial data," Thomas says, watching her carefully. "They said they had to bury it before the merger, before anyone else could see it." Trial data. The phrase triggers a faint, foggy memory. A research program Hale had championed years ago for neurological disorders. It was quietly shelved after adverse reactions. Hale had assured her it was nothing. Another lie. She looks up at Thomas, this quiet janitor who has just handed her the missing piece of the puzzle. "They've been drugging me for weeks," she admits, the confession tasting like ash. "Injections, blue vials, calling it a vitamin treatment for burnout." Thomas's expression hardens. He walks over to a small kitchen cabinet, unlocks it with a key, and removes a clear, double-knotted plastic bag. He places it on the table between them. Inside the bag is a small, empty blue vial and a syringe wrapper. Olivia stares at it, her breath catching. It's identical to the ones Hale used. "Where did you get this?" "From the trash in your office," he says simply. "I wore gloves. I thought it might be important." A wave of disbelief and overwhelming gratitude washes over her. This man, this stranger, had not only believed his daughter but had taken an incredible risk, acting with a foresight and care that was stunning. He hadn't just been a witness. He'd become a protector. "You have no idea what you've done, Mr. Calder," she says, her voice thick with emotion. "Thomas," he corrects her gently. "And I think I do. I decided I'm done letting my family get pushed around by people who think they're better than us." They look at each other across the small table, the evidence lying between them. The hierarchy of the world has dissolved. They are no longer CEO and janitor. They are two people with a common enemy, bound by a child's bravery and a vial of poison. They are allies. They won't see us coming, Olivia says, a spark of her old fire returning. They think you're invisible, and they think I'm losing my mind. Let them, Thomas replies, a grim smile touching his lips. Let them think whatever they want, right up until the moment we take everything from them. The vial on the table is a declaration of war. Olivia's strategic mind, dormant in a fog of poison, comes roaring back to life. Okay, she says, her voice decisive. This is what we have. A motive. They need to bury incriminating trial data before the merger. A method. Drugging me to make me appear incompetent so they can seize control. And now, a weapon. She gestures to the bagged vial. This is our starting point. Thomas nods, his expression serious. We can't go to the police with this. It's my word, my daughter's word, and one empty vial. They'll laugh us out of the building. You're right, Olivia agrees. We need more. I need to find that trial data. It won't be on the general servers. Hale's not that stupid. It will be in a legacy archive, firewalled or on physical hard drives. I can search for it, but I have to do it without tripping any digital alarms. Second, we need to connect Lorian to this. She taps the plastic bag. We need to know what it is. I can help with that, Thomas says. The vials had to come from somewhere private. His office is the place to start looking for a supplier, a receipt, anything. Olivia looks at him, a newfound respect in her eyes. His office is on the executive floor. It's locked, alarmed. I have a master key, Thomas says simply, and the night shift security guards don't look twice at the cleaning crew. They're too busy watching the monitors. I can get in. The plan forms in the space between them, fragile and dangerous. Olivia will hunt for the digital ghost of the trial data, playing the part of the frail, faltering CEO. Thomas will become a real ghost, moving through the halls to find the physical source of the poison. You have to be careful, Thomas, Olivia says, her voice tight with concern. If they catch you... They won't, he says, a grim certainty in his tone. They don't see me. That's the one advantage we have. The next day, Olivia feels like she's on a stage. Every gesture is a performance. She arrives late to her morning briefing, feigning a headache and speaking slowly, as if struggling for her words. She sees the looks exchanged between the other executives, pity from some, predatory opportunism from others. Geneva Paris watches her with the cool assessment of a scientist observing a specimen in its final throes. Later, Lorian Hale appears in her office, his face a mask of deep, compassionate concern. Olivia, you look terrible, he says, closing the door. I'm worried about you. I have another of your infusions ready. It will help. He opens his medical bag, and Olivia's heart seizes as she sees the small, familiar, blue vial. She forces a weak smile. Thank you, Lorian, but no. I saw my personal physician this morning. He ran some blood work and wants me on simple bed rest. No more supplements until he gets the results. It's a plausible lie, a shield she and Thomas constructed. Hale freezes, his hand hovering over the vial. Your personal physician? I could have sent him my notes. It was a last-minute appointment, Olivia says, pressing a hand to her temple. I'm just so exhausted. I think I'm going to work from home. She watches him, and for the first time, she sees the predator behind the charm. His eyes are cold, his smile suddenly tight. Her refusal has complicated his plan. Of course, he says, his voice strained. Rest is the best medicine. He puts the vial away and leaves. The moment he's gone, Olivia turns to her computer. The performance is over. The hunt is on. She dives deep into the hospital's archives, searching for a ghost named Project Chimera, a name she hadn't thought of in 5 years. That night, Thomas moves his cart down the silent, carpeted 40th floor corridor, his heart pounding. He reaches Dr. Hale's office. The nameplate on the door gleams. He takes a deep breath, his gloved hand closing around the master key. He glances down the hall. Empty. He slides the key into the lock and slips inside, closing the door behind him. He uses a small penlight, its narrow beam cutting through the gloom of the immaculate office. He moves quickly, methodically. He starts with the desk drawers. Nothing. He checks the credenza. On top sits a heavy-duty paper shredder, its bin full. Taking the contents is too risky. But then he sees it. A single, thin strip of paper that missed the shredder's teeth, clinging to the machine's edge by static. He carefully peels it off. It's a fragment from a shipping invoice. Most of the words are gone, but he can make out a few key phrases. Nova Compounding Pharmacy Rush Order Act, number LH7, and a single chilling word, neuromodulator. A private pharmacy, a private account, a neuromodulator. This is the source. His victory is short-lived. He hears a faint ding from the private executive elevator. Footsteps. Someone is coming. Panic, cold and sharp, floods his veins. He dives behind the large mahogany desk just as he hears a key in the lock. The door swings open and the office lights flash on. Thomas flattens himself into the knee-hole of the desk, praying the shadows will hold him. He sees a pair of polished Italian loafers. It's Dr. Hale. Hale is on his phone, his voice a low, angry hiss. The shipment has to be moved up. She's getting suspicious. I don't care what it costs. We'll need the final hard copies from the deep storage vault as well. Geneva is clearing our access for midnight. We shred everything tonight. Everything? Thomas lies motionless, not daring to breathe. Hale paces for a moment, agitated. He grabs a file from a drawer and turns to leave. For one heart-stopping second, he pauses, his gaze sweeping the room as if he senses something is wrong. Thomas's world shrinks to the space under the desk. Then, Hale turns and walks out, switching off the lights. The door clicks shut. Silence returns. Thomas waits, counting to 200 before he scrambles out, his shirt soaked with sweat. He has the invoice fragment clutched in his hand. And he has something more valuable. A destination. The deep storage vault. A deadline. Midnight. He slips out of the office, his heart still slamming against his ribs. He pulls out the burner phone, his fingers fumbling with the keys as he types a single, urgent message. He knows. He's destroying the rest of the evidence. Deep storage. Midnight. The text message glows on Olivia's phone, a flare in the darkness of her office. He knows. He's destroying the rest of the evidence. Deep storage. Midnight. The air leaves her lungs in a painful rush. The chess game is over. Hale has just tipped over the board. This is no longer strategy. It's a brawl. Deep storage. She knows exactly what it is. A high-security vault in the hospital's sub-basement. A tomb for the hospital's paper past. It's a fortress, and Geneva Paris holds the keys. Access is restricted, logged, and monitored. To go there is to walk directly into their trap. Her fingers, cold and numb, fly across the screen of her burner phone. Sub-basement B, loading dock 7. Now. She grabs her coat, her mind a whirlwind. The digital breadcrumbs she was following are now meaningless. The real evidence is about to be turned into confetti. The sub-basement is a different world, a labyrinth of concrete and steel. The air is cool, smelling of dust and ozone. Olivia finds loading dock 7, a cavernous, poorly lit space, silent and empty. A moment later, Thomas emerges from the shadows, his janitor's uniform a perfect camouflage. He looks pale, his face taut with the adrenaline of his near miss, but his eyes are clear and resolved. He came back, Thomas says, his voice low. He was on the phone. They're going to the vault at midnight to shred everything. He holds out the tiny, precious fragment of paper. I found this before he got there. From his shredder. Olivia takes the paper, her sharp eyes scanning the text under the dim safety lights. Lenova Compounding Pharmacy. Neuromodulator. The words are a gut punch. Lenova specialized in off-label and experimental drug synthesis. They were expensive, discreet, and legally gray. A neuromodulator wasn't a vitamin. It was a chemical designed to alter brain function. He wasn't just trying to make me confused, she whispers, the horror of it washing over her. He was trying to cause neurological damage. He's not just covering his tracks, Olivia, Thomas says, his voice grim. He's trying to bury the bodies. She looks at her watch. 10:30 p.m. They have 90 minutes. Geneva controls the access logs. If we go through the front door, they'll know we're coming. They'll say the unstable CEO is having a paranoid episode. So we don't use the front door, Thomas says. He gestures down a long, dark corridor. The conduits that power the vault run through that service tunnel. The plans for this building are 50 years old. There's a ventilation shaft that runs directly over the vault ceiling. It's small, but we can get through. Olivia stares at him, then down at her silk blouse and high heels. A ventilation shaft? You have a better idea, he challenges, his gaze steady. A slow, dangerous smile spreads across her face. No, I don't. The plan forms in a rush of desperate clarity. They're expecting to be alone. We need to give them a reason to be somewhere else. A fire they have to put out. She pulls out her personal phone and dials a number from memory. A man with a gravelly voice answers on the first ring. Mr. Corbin, it's Olivia Coventry. I have an emergency. I need you to trigger a level 1 data corruption alert on the hospital's central server. Target patient admission and financial systems. Make it look catastrophic. And I need it to happen at exactly 11:45 p.m. There's a pause. That's a bold move, Ms. Coventry. It will cause chaos. Chaos is the point, Corbin, she says. Send the bill to my private account. She hangs up and looks at Thomas. That gives us a window. As chief of medicine, Hale will have to respond. As administrator, Geneva is responsible for the data's integrity. It will pull them both to the IT hub on the 5th floor. And while they're running upstairs, Thomas finishes, a spark of grim excitement in his eyes. We'll be crawling downstairs. He disappears for a moment, returning with a small canvas tool bag containing 2 headlamps and a pry bar. He hands one of the headlamps to her. It's going to be dark, he says, and dirty. Olivia straps the headlamp to her forehead without hesitation. She kicks off her expensive heels, leaving them abandoned on the concrete. She stands before him in her stockinged feet. The CIO is gone. The fighter has arrived. They synchronize their watches. 11:15 p.m. The countdown has begun. They move together down the service corridor, their footsteps echoing. They reach a heavy steel door marked Danger, High Voltage. Thomas produces an old brass key and unlocks it. He turns to her in the dim light. The weight of the moment hangs between them. They are about to break into a secure vault, based on a child's testimony and a scrap of paper, to stop 2 of the most powerful people in the city. It's insane. Ready to get your hands dirty, Miss Coventry? Thomas asks, his voice low. It's Olivia, she replies, her gaze fixed on the darkness ahead. And I've been waiting my whole life. The service tunnel is a maze of humming pipes, slick with condensation. The air is heavy, tasting of rust and stagnant water. Olivia follows the beam of Thomas's headlamp, her own light cutting a shaky path. The darkness is absolute, swallowing the sound of their frantic footsteps. Thomas moves with a quiet, practiced confidence. He is the master of this underworld. Watch that pipe, he murmurs, pointing to a dark, insulated tube. High-pressure steam. Olivia flattens herself against the opposing wall, her heart slamming against her ribs. This is the grimy, dangerous foundation of her empire. They reach a junction of massive air ducts. Thomas stops and points his light upward to a heavy iron grill bolted into the side. Here, this shaft runs directly over the vault. Just as Thomas pulls the pry bar from his bag, Olivia's burner phone vibrates. The screen lights up. The dragon is loose. Almost immediately, a subtle change ripples through the building. A distant, rhythmic clanging begins. A fire alarm shutter descending far above. That's our cue, Olivia says, her voice tight. The diversion just hit. Hale and Paris are on the move. The pressure is immense. Thomas wedges the pry bar into the grill's edge and heaves. The old metal groans in protest, a screech that echoes down the tunnel. They won't hear it over the building's noise. He grunts, and with another powerful shove, the metal shrieks and a corner of the grill pops free. He works it open enough to squeeze through. He scales a nearby conduit, then reaches down for Olivia. "Give me your hand." His grip is strong and steady, pulling her up into the pitch-black maw of the ventilation shaft. Inside, the world shrinks to the narrow beams of their headlamps. Dust, thick as felt, coats every surface. The air is stale. They crawl on hands and knees, the cold metal unforgiving beneath them. After what feels like an eternity, Thomas stops. He shines his light down through a grate in the floor of the shaft. "We're here." Olivia crawls beside him and peers down. Below them is the deep storage vault, a vast sterile room lined with rows of industrial shelving. In the center, a heavy-duty industrial shredder sits like a malevolent idol. Next to it are 3 large carts piled high with gray storage boxes. They're boxes. The room is empty. The diversion worked. Thomas lifts the grate and lowers himself down, dropping the last 10 feet with a soft thud. He looks up at Olivia. "Come on, I'll catch you." She doesn't hesitate, dropping into his arms. "Project Chimera," Olivia says, her voice a hushed command. "The trial was shut down 5 years ago. Look for archives from that period. They split up, their headlamps cutting frantic paths through the rows of shelves. The silence is deafening." Then Olivia sees it. Tucked away in a forgotten corner is a small section of shelves. A simple label on the rack reads, "Chimera NVT Phase 1. "Thomas," she breathes, "over here." He is at her side in an instant. He pulls down one of the heavy boxes, and Olivia flips open the lid. Inside are dozens of thick manila patient folders. She pulls one out and opens it. The contents steal the air from her lungs. It's worse than she ever imagined. The first few pages are standard clinical notes. Then come the photographs of patients, their faces first hopeful, then vacant. She sees doctors' notes describing uncontrollable tremors and rapid cognitive decline. She flips to the back of the file and finds a death certificate. Stapled behind it is a handwritten note from a junior researcher. Patient exhibited severe serotonin syndrome post-injection. Dr. Hale ordered records sealed. "He didn't just bury bad data," Olivia whispers, her voice shaking with rage. "He buried people." She digs deeper, finding a stack of authorization forms for the project. At the bottom of each page is a familiar, elegant signature. Her own. Hale had buried her in here with them, getting her to sign off on documents she'd never read, making her the official sponsor of his monstrous experiment. "We have it," Thomas says, his voice tight. "We have everything." He begins pulling more boxes from the shelf, stacking them to carry out. They have to move. But just as he lifts a second box, a sound cuts through the sterile silence. A soft electronic beep, followed by a click. They both freeze, their heads snapping toward the vault's main entrance. A thin sliver of light appears under the massive, soundproof door. Someone has just swiped a keycard. The low, powerful hiss of the door's hydraulic lock disengaging echoes through the room like the drawing of a final, fatal breath. They are trapped. The door is opening. The hiss of the hydraulics is the sound of the world ending. The massive steel door slides open, flooding the entrance with the harsh light of the corridor. Olivia and Thomas are frozen, exposed. In the doorway stand 2 broad-shouldered security guards. From behind them, Dr. Lorian Hale steps into the vault. He is not panicked. He is smiling. The server crash wasn't a diversion for them. It was a trap for her. "Olivia," Hale says, his voice dripping with mock sympathy. "I knew you were having difficulties, but I never imagined this. Breaking into a secure archive? And involving the janitorial staff. This is a sad new low." "You won't get away with this, Lorian," Olivia spits, her voice trembling with a rage so pure it burns. Hale chuckles. "Get away with it?" My dear, I already have. You, on the other hand, he gestures to the guards. You will be escorted to the hospital's psychiatric wing for an emergency evaluation. You've been under extreme stress. You're clearly having a breakdown. Tragic, really. One of the guards takes a step forward. Thomas instinctively moves in front of Olivia, shielding her with his body. He holds the heavy pry bar like a weapon. Stay back, he growls. Hale's eyes narrow. Don't be a fool, Calder. You're a janitor playing hero. Give it up, and I might convince Ms. Paris not to press charges. You might even keep your job. The files, Olivia says, her voice low and urgent, to Thomas. The files are everything. In that split second, their eyes meet. An entire conversation passes between them without a word. The mission is not to escape together. The mission is for the evidence to escape. Go! Thomas bellows, and he acts. It is not a calculated move. It is a primal roar of defiance. He shoves the cart loaded with the chimera boxes towards the guards with all his might. The heavy cart careens down the aisle, forcing them to jump back. At the same moment, Thomas swings the pry bar and smashes it against the emergency release valve of a fire suppression pipe along the ceiling. A deafening hiss explodes as the pipe ruptures. A thick, billowing cloud of CO2 gas floods the room, a freezing, suffocating fog that instantly obscures everything. Alarms blare, strobing red lights cutting through the white chaos. Get her! Hale screams, his voice muffled. Thomas grabs Olivia's arm. The shaft! It's our only way out. Blinded and choked by the fumes, they scramble back towards the ventilation opening. Olivia can hear the guards coughing and shouting behind them. Thomas shoves her toward the wall. Climb! I'm right behind you! She finds the shelving and hauls herself up, her lungs burning. She pulls herself into the shaft just as a hand grabs her ankle. She kicks out wildly, connecting with something solid. The hand lets go. Thomas! She screams into the chaos. I'm here! He shouts back, his voice strained. He's at the base of the shelf, holding off a guard. He shoves the guard back, then scrambles up. He's halfway into the shaft when the second guard reaches him, grabbing his leg. Thomas kicks, but the guard holds on, his weight a dead anchor. Hale appears out of the fog, his face a mask of pure fury, grabbing Thomas's other leg. They are pulling him back down. Take this! Thomas yells, his voice raw. He shoves a single thick manila folder into Olivia's hands. It's one of the patient files. Go, Olivia! Warn Lyra. No! She cries, reaching for him. I'm not leaving you! You have to! He shouts, his grip slipping. It doesn't work if they get the proof back. Run! The guards give one last brutal pull, and Thomas is ripped from the vent. He falls back into the chaos below. Olivia watches in horror as they swarm him. The last thing she sees is Hale standing over Thomas, his face contorted in a triumphant sneer. Sobbing, her body screaming with exertion, Olivia crawls through the shaft. The alarms and shouting fade behind her. There is only the darkness, the cold metal, and the single precious file clutched to her chest. His sacrifice, her mission. She emerges back into the service tunnel like a ghost, covered in dust and grime. She runs. Up stairwells, through deserted corridors, away from the sub-basement tomb. She makes it to the parking garage, her hands shaking so violently she can barely fit the key in the ignition. She peels out, the tires screaming. Driving through the city, she is a wraith. The file sits on the passenger seat. She knows the police are useless. Hale would paint her as a hysterical woman. There is only one person who matters now. She pulls over and takes out the burner phone, dialing the number for Mrs. Gable. Mrs. Gable, she says, her voice hoarse. It's Olivia Coventry. Lock your doors. Don't let anyone in to see Lyra. No one. Not even if they say they're from the hospital. Is everything all right? The old woman asks, worried. No, Olivia whispers, tears finally streaming down her face. But it's going to be. She hangs up, looking at her reflection in the rearview mirror. A wild-eyed stranger. The CEO is dead. The woman who is left has nothing to lose. I'm coming back for you, Thomas. she vows to the empty night. I promise. The city is a blur of streetlights. Olivia drives on pure instinct, a fugitive from her own life. Thomas is gone. They have him. But beneath the grief is a core of hard, cold steel. He sacrificed himself for the mission. She will not let it be in vain. She can't go to her penthouse. It's the first place they'll look. Her credit cards and phone are liabilities. Years ago, she'd used a shell corporation to purchase a small, nondescript condo in a part of the city she never visited. An anonymous box in a sea of anonymous boxes. Her panic room. She parks blocks away and walks the rest of the way in the rain, clutching the manila folder. Inside the condo, she locks the door, slides the deadbolt, and leans against it, her body finally succumbing to the tremors she'd been holding back. She slides to the floor, the file in her lap, and for a full minute, she lets the horror wash over her. Then she gets to work. She spreads the file's contents across the coffee table. It tells the horrifying story of a patient named Michael Renner, his hopeful admission photo, the clinical notes detailing his rapid decline into paralysis, the final death certificate, and the damning, handwritten note from a junior researcher. At the bottom of the stack are the authorization protocols for Project Chimera, each one bearing her perfect, forged signature. They had made her the official sponsor of his monstrous experiment. This file is her sword and her shield. It proves the crime and it proves her innocence. She takes out her burner phone and photographs every page, creating a digital backup. Her mind clears with a chilling focus. Lyra. Thomas's last words were a command. Warn Lyra. Hale knows the little girl was the catalyst. He and Geneva will see her as a dangerous, loose end. She dials the number for Mr. Corbin, her security consultant. Corbin, she says, her voice low and even. I have a wet work situation. It's time-sensitive and requires absolute discretion. Understood, Ms. Coventry. Send the location. An apartment building, 1450 Elm Street, apartment 3B. The neighbor, Mrs. Gable, is watching a 9-year-old girl named Lyra Calder. I need you to get the girl out of there. No one sees you. Hale and Paris may have people watching. You will not be seen. And the girl? Corbin asks. Bring her to me. I'm sending you the address of this location now. Use the service entrance. My code phrase for the neighbor is, the starlings are flying south. Corbin, this is the most important thing you have ever done for me. Consider it done, he says, and the line goes dead. With Lyra's extraction in motion, Olivia moves to the next phase. She needs an army, but an army of one. She dials another number. Hayes, a sleepy voice answers. Julian, it's Olivia Coventry, she says. I apologize for the hour. Olivia? The sleepiness vanishes, replaced by sharp concern. It's 2 a.m. What's wrong? I have evidence of corporate manslaughter, fraud, and a conspiracy at Northwood, she says, her words clipped and precise. My life is in danger. One of my employees has been abducted and is being held somewhere in the hospital. I am in hiding. There is a stunned silence. Are you serious? I am sending you an encrypted file. The password is the name of the boat we sailed on in Croatia. I need you to look at it, and I need you to meet me at 7 a.m. I'll send the address an hour before. And Julian, trust no one. They own the local police. I'll be there, he says without hesitation. Don't move. Don't talk to anyone else. She hangs up and leans her head back, the adrenaline finally ebbing, leaving a profound exhaustion in its wake. All she can do now is wait. An hour later, a soft, discreet knock comes at the door. Olivia's heart leaps. She checks the peephole. It's Corbin. Beside him, holding his hand, is a small, trembling figure. Lyra. Olivia unlocks the door. Corbin gives her a single, solemn nod and melts back into the hallway. Lyra steps inside, clutching a worn teddy bear. She looks so small, so lost. She looks up at Olivia, her bottom lip trembling. Where's my dad? She asks, her voice a tiny, fragile whisper that shatters the last of Olivia's composure. The weight of her promise, her new responsibility for his daughter, crashes down on her. She kneels and pulls Lyra into a gentle hug. The little girl is stiff for a moment. Then she collapses against her, burying her face in Olivia's shoulder. "He's safe," Olivia says, her own voice thick with unshed tears. She holds Lyra tight, a silent vow passing between them. "He was so brave, and we are going to be brave too. We're going to bring him home." Dawn filters through the cheap blinds, but for Olivia and Lyra, the night never ended. Lyra is asleep on the sofa, curled under Olivia's wool coat. Olivia hasn't moved from the armchair opposite, watching over the child like a sentinel. The patient file sits on the table, a silent bomb. Lyra stirs, her eyes fluttering open. They are her father's eyes. She sits up and looks around the unfamiliar room, her gaze finally settling on Olivia. "Is he okay?" she asks, her voice small. Olivia's heart aches. She moves to the sofa and sits on the edge, taking Lyra's small hand. "Your dad is the bravest man I have ever met," she says, her voice soft but steady. "He's like a superhero, trapped by the bad guys. But I have a very smart, very powerful friend coming to help us. He's going to help us bring your dad home." A single tear rolls down Lyra's cheek. "I want him now." "I know," Olivia whispers, pulling the little girl into a gentle embrace. "I do too." At precisely 7 a.m., a sharp, confident knock echoes. Olivia checks the peephole. Julian Hayes stands in the hallway, his face grim, his gaze sharp. He is the army she called for. She opens the door and he steps inside, his eyes taking in the scene in a single glance. Olivia's disheveled state, the sleeping child, the file on the table. He gets straight to business. "Olivia," he says, his voice a low rumble of controlled fury. "I read the file. Twice. This is worse than you said. This isn't just corporate malfeasance. This is conspiracy to commit murder." He looks at her, his eyes hard as diamonds. "And they used your name to do it." "They have Thomas Calder," Olivia says, her voice raw. "The janitor. They took him in the vault last night. A material witness being held against his will," Julian says, nodding. "That elevates everything. It gives us leverage." He paces the small room. "The local police are out. Hale and Paris are pillars of the community. They'd tie this up in red tape until Thomas and the files disappear forever. We're going federal. The out-of-state pharmacy gives us wire fraud. The plot to tank the merger is securities fraud. And the kidnapping gives the FBI immediate jurisdiction. The living room is now a war room. In a forgotten, soundproofed hospital room with painted-over windows, Thomas Calder sits on a narrow bed. Dr. Hale stands before him, his charming smile gone, replaced by a look of reptilian coldness. Geneva Paris leans against the wall, watching. "Your daughter is a lovely girl, Thomas," Geneva says, her voice smooth as silk. "So bright, so vulnerable." Thomas's head snaps up, pure hatred in his eyes. "You leave her out of this. She's already in it," Hale says, stepping closer. He places a single sheet of paper and a pen on the table. It's a typed confession. "Here is how this ends. You sign this. It says you were a disgruntled employee who manipulated an unwell Olivia Coventry. You sign this, you'll serve some time, but Lyra will be fine. She'll be safe." Thomas stares at the paper, his heart pounding with a terror so profound it threatens to swallow him whole. "And if I don't sign?" he asks, his voice a hoarse whisper. Geneva pushes off the wall. "Accidents happen every day. Children fall on playgrounds. It would be a tragedy." Thomas looks from her face to Hale's. He sees no bluff, only the dead eyes of monsters. But he also thinks of Olivia and the file he gave her. He has to believe he bought her enough time. He looks down at the paper, then back up at Hale, and with a voice that does not tremble, he says, "Go to hell." Back in the condo, Julian is on the phone. His tone is clipped, urgent, and brooks no argument. Olivia watches him, her future hanging on this call. Lyra is at the coffee table now, quietly drawing. "Listen to me, Marcus," Julian says into the phone. "I am sending a file to your secure server right now. The password is Chimera. It contains proof of manslaughter and a corporate conspiracy at Northwood Hospital. My client, the CEO, is with me. They are holding her key witness hostage inside the hospital as we speak. This is not a white-collar case anymore. It's a ticking clock. He listens for a moment, his jaw tight. You have 1 hour. I want a federal search and seizure warrant for the Northwood sub-basement archives and Dr. Lorian Hale's office, and I want a federal team ready to execute it. Yes, the AUSA for the Southern District. Get her on the phone. Tell her Julian Hayes is calling in the only favor he's ever asked for. He hangs up, the silence in the room deafening. He turns to Olivia. Marcus Thorne at the FBI, he explains. He's the best. He's taking it directly to Assistant U.S. Attorney Anya Sharma. If anyone can get a federal judge to sign a warrant this fast, it's her. He looks at the clock. We have a chance. Olivia looks over at Lyra, who holds up her finished drawing. It's a picture of her father with a superhero cape, breaking the bars of a cage. A fragile, ferocious hope blooms in Olivia's chest. The monsters had underestimated the janitor, the CEO, and the unbreakable love of a father for his daughter. The counteroffensive was launched. Now they had to pray it was fast enough. The hours in the condo crawl by, each one a lifetime. The morning sun gives way to the flat, gray light of midday. Julian Hayes works relentlessly. His phone calls a quiet, staccato rhythm of legal pressure and strategic maneuvering. Olivia and Lyra exist in a bubble of suspended time. They build a pillow fort. They eat toast for lunch. Olivia, who once commanded boardrooms, now focuses on the singular, monumental task of making a frightened little girl feel safe. Lyra shows Olivia the picture she drew, her father, the superhero. He can break any cage, Lyra says, her voice full of a faith so pure it makes Olivia's heart ache. Yes, he can, Olivia says, her voice thick with emotion. And we're his team. We help him from the outside. At 2:15 p.m., Julian's phone rings. He listens, his expression unreadable. He says only 2 words. They're in. He hangs up and looks at Olivia. The warrant was signed an hour ago. The federal team is executing it now. They've secured the sub-basement archives. They're moving on Hale's office. He pauses, taking a breath. It's time. They want us at the hospital. Dr. Lorian Hale pours himself a glass of scotch, standing at the window of his immaculate office, and looking down at the city he believes he owns. Geneva Paris sits opposite his desk, scrolling through her tablet, a faint, satisfied smirk on her face. The board is calling an emergency session for tomorrow, she says, without looking up. Based on my report of Olivia's erratic behavior and the break-in, they'll vote to suspend her. The motion to appoint you as interim CEO is already drafted. And Calder? Hale asks, swirling the amber liquid in his glass. He's still in the holding room, Geneva says dismissively. He's defiant, but he'll break. Once he understands his daughter's future is in our hands, he'll sign anything we put in front of him. Good, Hale says. Tie up the loose ends. The door to his office opens without a knock. A man in a dark, impeccably tailored suit steps inside, flanked by 2 other agents. He holds up a badge. Dr. Hale, Miss Paris. My name is Special Agent Thorne with the FBI. We have a warrant to search these premises. Hale's smile freezes. Geneva's head snaps up, her eyes wide with disbelief. This is absurd, Hale sputters, a flush creeping up his neck. On what grounds? A woman steps in behind the agents. She is sharp, poised, and her eyes radiate an authority that eclipses everyone in the room. On the grounds of conspiracy to commit wire fraud, securities fraud, and kidnapping, Assistant U.S. Attorney Anya Sharma says, her voice cutting through the air like a scalpel. And we can add corporate manslaughter to that list. She holds up a tablet, the screen showing a crystal-clear image of the file Olivia had photographed, a page detailing the death of Michael Renner. The color drains from Hale's face. Geneva Paris opens her mouth to speak, but for the first time in her life, no words come out. Agents, Sharma says calmly, secure their devices and take them into custody. Simultaneously, in the cold, windowless room in the hospital's underbelly, the lock on Thomas Calder's door clicks. He looks up, expecting Hale. The door swings open, but it's not Hale. It's two FBI agents in tactical vests. "Thomas Calder?" one asks. Thomas can only nod, his throat tight. The agent smiles, a small, kind gesture. "You're safe now. We're here to take you home." The hospital is buzzing with the controlled chaos of a federal raid. Olivia and Julian are escorted through the corridors, past the stunned, whispering employees. They are led not to an interrogation room, but to a quiet lounge where Anya Sharma is waiting. "Miss Coventry," Sharma says, shaking her hand. "The evidence you and Mr. Calder secured was irrefutable. We found the rest of the Project Chimera files exactly where you said they'd be. Dr. Hale and Ms. Paris are in federal custody." She pauses, her expression softening. "Your employee, Mr. Calder, is a hero. He's shaken but unharmed. He's waiting for you next door." Olivia's legs feel weak with relief. She pushes open the adjoining door. Thomas is sitting on a sofa, a paramedic checking his blood pressure. He looks up, and his tired, bruised face breaks into a slow, brilliant smile. She crosses the room in 3 strides. There are no words. There is only the overwhelming, unspoken truth of what they have endured. "You came back for me," he whispers, his voice rough. "I promised," she replies, her own voice thick with tears. The reunion with Lyra is a moment of pure, unadulterated joy that cuts through the grim reality of the day. Thomas lifts his daughter into his arms, burying his face in her hair, and for a long time, he just holds her, the superhero finally home, the cage well and truly broken. 6 months later, the snow is falling, laying a blanket of clean, quiet white over a small house with a big front porch. The headlines have faded. Lorian Hale and Geneva Paris were found guilty on all counts, sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The story of Project Chimera shocked the nation, a horrifying tale of greed and corruption. The Northwood Hospital Group, under a new board handpicked by Olivia, issued a public apology and established a multi-billion-dollar restitution fund for the families of the victims. Olivia Coventry is no longer its CIO. She's on the porch swing, a steaming mug of coffee in her hands, watching Lyra build a snowman in the front yard. A newly adopted golden retriever puppy pounces at the carrot Lyra is trying to use for a nose, and her laughter rings out in the crisp winter air. Thomas comes out and sits beside her, handing her a worn, first-edition copy of a novel she mentioned she loved. He is no longer a janitor. He is the executive director of the Renner Foundation, a powerful new patient advocacy group funded by a massive anonymous donation from Olivia. He fights for the families the system forgets. He has found his voice, and it is a voice of unwavering integrity. "You know," he says, his arm resting gently behind her on the swing, "this is a lot better than the sub-basement." Olivia leans her head against his shoulder, a real, genuine smile gracing her lips. "I don't know," she teases. The ventilation shafts had a certain rustic charm. They sit in comfortable silence, watching his daughter, her dog, in the yard of their home. They had walked through fire and emerged on the other side, not unscathed, but whole. They had lost their old lives only to build a new one together, founded not on power or ambition, but on the quiet, unshakable truth of a promise kept. Justice had been served. But here, in the gentle fall of the snow, with the sound of a child's laughter, they had found something far more precious. They had found peace. And so, their story reminds us that the brightest lights can be found in the darkest places, and the greatest strength often comes from the quietest voices. It teaches us that courage isn't the absence of fear, but the refusal to let it have the last word. Now, I'd love to hear your story. Where in the world are you listening from tonight? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one, and your stories of resilience and hope inspire me more than you know. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe to the channel and join our community. And finally, thank you. Thank you for being here, for listening, and for believing in the simple, powerful truth that no one is truly invisible. Until the next story, may you carry this light into your own life.